first off, yeah, I love the sunshine coming in there. How much fun are you having on a scale of 1 to 10 during this tournament?
45. And I would say, I told my wife this last night, guys, that this is the most fun I've had covering baseball in my entire career. And that is not something I say lightly. I've been covering the sport since 1987, so I guess that makes it about 37 years now, or 37th season we're starting. But this last week, 10 days, it's been amazing. And covering Adam in 2017 was a lot of fun, but this is elevated even beyond that. And it's exhausting in a lot of ways. I write after every game, but I can't even begin to tell you how much fun it's been. I've seen in the last 4 nights 3 of the best games I've ever seen. And that's saying something. I've covered a lot of World Series and a lot of great events, but man, there's something to this. And I understand fans who have concerns and whatever, but watch the games. That's what I said the last time. Just watch the games and then tell me, oh, this isn't great. It's great.
Wait, Ken, weren't you the same guy complaining that you had to do 10 games in 12 days?
Not complaining.
Oh, it's a little bit of
No, I was not. No, AJ.
I got to work so hard. I got to write. I got 10. Now it's the greatest thing of all time.
AJ, you have never heard me once. You know this, and you need to take this back. You've never heard me once complain about my job. I love my job. I've got the greatest job going. And I did say, yes, 10 games in 12 days. That's more than I've ever done. That is a fact, not a complaint.
Okay, good. Because I want to make sure. Now, are you ready for tonight's game? And I do have a couple.
No, I'm not ready. I'm just going to sit here and complain the rest of the day.
I figured that's exactly how you reporters do it. That's how you media people do it. Oh, woe is me. My life's so hard. I get to watch great baseball for free. I get paid to do it. Now you sound like Adam Jones. But for tonight's game.
Adam doesn't complain either. You're stirring up the wrong pot, man.
Hey, so Kenny, tonight, serious note, tonight, Merrill Kelly, he didn't pitch great the first time. A little worried about him against Japan. Why him? Why not, one of the other options? And the second thing I have is, why not Yu Darvish tonight? Is there a reason behind what? So why both starting pitchers? What's the reason? Have you asked that question?
Well, we haven't had time to ask the question yet because they didn't announce this until after everything was done last night, all the media sessions. Now, what's curious about the Japanese choice is they're going with a left-hander. And the U.S. has the 4 right-handed sluggers at the top of the lineup. Betts, Trout, Goldschmidt, Arenado. They've got Alonso, they've got Turner, they've got Real Muto. I mean, there's a lot of right-handed thump there, and it's curious to me why the Japanese team would start a left-hander. And like you said, AJ, not Yu Darvish. I don't get that. Now, is it possible they switch at the last minute? I guess, but they seem pretty set on this being their plan. And certainly Darvish can come in right away. But I don't know why you'd start a lefty against those 4 right-handed hitters. It's just beyond me. Merrill Kelly is a little bit of a different situation. He is probably Team USA's best option. They used Lynn and Michaelis the other night, so both those guys are out. Kyle Freeland would be an interesting choice against a heavily left-handed Japanese lineup, but at the same time, he hasn't pitched since the Great Britain game. Merrill Kelly is a guy who is experienced, who is not afraid. He just didn't pitch well in his last outing. And he's also a guy who pitched 4 seasons in Korea. So he has some familiarity with the Asian style. And I asked someone this morning, well, is it different between Korea and Japan, the way players approach it? And the person I spoke with said the hitting approach is essentially the same. It's similar. It's contact-oriented. The pre-pitch stance is similar. The swing paths are not all that different in many cases. So from that perspective, all those perspectives, Merrill Kelly is the right choice for where they are right now. Now, obviously, if you had Max Scherzer or Justin Verlander or Garrett Cole or Max Fried or any of those other guys, you'd want to go with them, but that's not where they are.
Who's the guy on each team that you think is going to be the guy that steps up, or you feel like how that team is going to win the game, possibly?
Well, for Japan, I don't know how you don't go with Ohtani, and he's going to factor into this perhaps multiple ways. Certainly last night, they needed a big hit to start the ninth, double, first pitch. So I don't know how you can go against him. It'll be interesting to see if Murakami now, after the big hit last night, the walk-off 2-run double, snaps out of it. He had been having a rough WBC. He's the guy who, at age 22 last year, hit 56 home runs and won the Japanese Triple Crown. So I don't know that you can count him out, but I would say those two. For the U.S., I mean, I don't know how you go against Trout. And he didn't have the best game in the last game. Turner obviously is red hot, but I like Mike Trout in all situations. I like him tonight.
Kenny, what's up? I haven't seen you every day.
Don't sound so excited, Jonesy.
You've been writing.
There he goes, complaining again, AJ.
You've been writing for a long time. You've seen great moments. Again, you're saying this is some of the best baseball of your career. Like, we're fans of the game. Has this, like, opened up your fandom? Obviously, you have to report what's going on, but have you been able to, like, take a step back and just watch as a fan?
Well, not really, AJ, because when you're working the broadcast, it's not like watching as a fan. It's different. But I certainly have been able to enjoy what I'm seeing. And AJ, Adam, you've been at the games. They've been electric, and the crowds are incredible. And even last night, I was wondering how this crowd's going to be. It's Japan, it's Mexico. Japan's really far away. Mexico's pretty far away. And yet the crowd was incredible. Lots of passionate support on both sides. So I can appreciate all that. And not only that, but watching the best players in the world compete against each other. Now, we see that all the time in Major League Baseball to a certain extent, but there's a different level here. One, these are all-star teams. Two, they're playing for their country. The players are playing for their country. And Adam, you experienced this. It is different. And you're seeing it not just in the foreign players. Obviously, Japan was quite excited last night. We have never seen Ohtani, at least in this continent, be that exuberant on the field. But we're also seeing it with the U.S. players. We're seeing it in Trout and anyone you might want to name. They are all having what they describe as the times of their lives. And that's really cool to see, too. It's really cool to see the players just so wired by this. And it's a combination of things. It's being with each other, being with all these fellow great players. It's the coaching staff, which they seem to enjoy. It's the atmosphere, and it's putting that Team USA across their jersey. That, to a lot of guys, means an awful lot. So when you combine all that with the fact that it's really taking place with every country participating, it's a very, very special event.
Hey, Ken, in your article in The Athletic about the game, the part that stood out to me, because you know how I am, I look for the petty stuff, but also the meaningful stuff. The quote from Shohei Ohtani. It's been a while since I was playing in a win-or-lose game, a playoff atmosphere game. Obviously, we couldn't lose, and I wanted to get the guys rallied up in the dugout. That was an absolute dig. I don't care what he says. And I'm not saying he's just speaking going, how can I take shots at my team that's had 5 losing seasons since I've been there? But I took a lot out of that, and I do relate it to his experience in baseball over the last 5 years. This guy is competitive as can be. He knows he's the best player in the world. So for me, I'm kind of looking at it going, is he regretting the last 5 years based on the signing decision that he made? That's the part to me that's standing out, is I think he's reflecting and looking at a situation like this and being like, not only no playoff baseball, often in the second half of the year, he's playing meaningless baseball. And we always talk about it. It's a shame Trout, Ohtani, etc. don't get to play in meaningful games in the playoffs. So can you do, it's like the book report. The book report, look at what Ohtani said and give me like the meaning inside the meaning of that quote. What did you take out of it?
Well, let's play some 5-dimensional chess here. Why not? I was there when he said that, and he was talking to a group of American reporters. There's about, I would say, 10 of us. And his translator, Ipe, was doing the interpreting. And he was asked the question about his excitement, the excitement he showed on the field, and why that was. And basically what he said was, hey, what that quote was, I haven't played in a game like this in a while. At that moment, I did not consider it a dig. It did not come off that way. But when I wrote that it was an interesting response, based, of course, on the last 5 years. And he's made it pretty clear. He wants to win. Trout is making it clear. He wants to win. He has said it's time to win. So it's no secret that Ohtani is a free agent after this season. And if the Angels do not perform better, he could be out of there. And even if they do. I'm not so sure he's going to want to stay because he's seen the last 5 years. So for sure, the excitement we saw is not an excitement we've seen here. And in part, that's because the Angels have had 5 straight losing seasons since he's been there, 7 straight overall. They haven't been to the playoffs in 8 years. It's kind of affecting everyone in the organization, driving them. But at the same time, they understand where they are, and it's not a good place.
Breaking news from Ken Rosenthal: Otani's not signing back, and Mike Trout wants a trade. So thank you for that, Ken. We really appreciate it.
AJ, I'm about to complain about my job. People taking words out of context.
So Ken, I want to go back to you're talking about Ohtani, but Yu Darvish. I asked you, why isn't he starting? I played with you, and I know how you works. Is there any part of this that goes back to him pitching in big games and not always having the best results in those games, whether it's the World Series with the Dodgers, Game 7, or there's been some other opportunities where he started games that teams need to win that he's on, and he hasn't exactly pitched well. So is there any thought that, hey, maybe if we can use him out of the bullpen like they did when they won in 2009 or another role for him? Do you think any of that played into it?
AJ, it's a good question. I don't know. And remember, this is the Japanese manager making this decision, Kuriyama, not anybody in the major leagues. And I think the perception of Darvish over there is perhaps not quite what it is here. They perhaps see him in a higher light. And the 2017 Game 7 where the Astros stealing signs, we don't know exactly what was going on, but certainly that's possible since Major League Baseball determined that they were stealing signs illegally during that postseason. So I think he gets a pass on that. I know he's had some other rough games. I believe he was pretty good last year in the playoffs. So I don't expect that is coming into play, but I'm really curious about this. We're going to meet with the manager before the broadcast, and I'm sure this is a question that's going to come up. I don't understand, again, the left-hander when you've got Yu Darvish. I don't understand why you wouldn't start Ohtani. Have him be the opener against those 4 right-handed hitters and see where it goes. But for whatever reason, this is the course they're taking, and I'm sure they have their reasons. Managers and teams always do, but it just seems curious to me.
What does the WBC, what can we take from the WBC and put it in MLB? What's the one thing that's going to raise the entire MLB percentage points, excitement points? Because you're there every day. What is the thing that we can do, that we can implement that we don't currently do now?
I'm not sure, Eric. And playing for your country is a unique and rare experience. It's a privilege in a lot of the players' minds, and it's not something that can be duplicated in a 162-game season when you're playing for your employer, your team. So I don't expect in any way that we can see the same kind of energy during the season. However, there are things that can change. Adam, I don't know if we talked about this the other day, but maybe guys now will start coming out of the dugout for big home runs, not just walk-offs. Some of that can certainly translate. They do it in the winter leagues, and no one gets too upset. It's the kind of the culture of the game in those places. And in my view, for too long in our sport, the culture has been too staid and too sedate and too, don't look at me, we can't have any fun, all that. It goes back to the unwritten rules and all the things that we've talked about for the last several years. I'd like to see that change. And I'd like to see that not frowned upon when a player flips a bat or shows some excitement. We have, in my opinion, made some progress in that area, and there is a fine line between doing that and showing up the opponent and doing something that is widely perceived as disrespectful. But certainly, the fun that we're seeing here, the excitement, that can translate, and I expect it to ramp up a little bit more. Maybe not so obviously right away. And again, over 162, there is no way you can expect this kind of emotion, passion, energy. But when something big happens in the game, you want to pour out of the dugout, that's pretty cool.
Ken, why, as a person, I got thrown out a lot after showing some emotion, which I understand because that's the way we play it in America. But why is nobody's feelings getting hurt in this tournament as opposed to Major League Baseball where Tim Anderson flips his bat, Salvador Perez, stops him at home plate and says, hey, don't do that again, right? But now if he would have done it when USA played Venezuela, what's changed? Like all of a sudden people don't have feelings because they're playing for their country as opposed to when you're playing for your team. I mean, you would think they'd have more feelings playing for your country.
They do. And AJ, I don't know the answer to that question. And it's a really good question because you just mentioned Salvador Perez. He certainly doesn't mind that when Acuna does stuff for Team Venezuela, right? So I don't know why players perceive it differently. Obviously, there's one culture in Major League Baseball. There's another culture in international play and in the Caribbean and all of that. But, I mean, if there's anything we take from it, it's have a little fun. Rosarena last night, he did things that I've never seen a player do during a game. Signing autographs, bantering with fans repeatedly, just having the time of his life. And hey, that's not for everyone. Not every guy can do that and stay locked in. But if a player wants to do that and feels comfortable doing that, why not? It was something that a lot of fans really enjoyed. And if they had won that game last night, Team Mexico, oh my gosh, it would have been Randy Rosarena's latest crowning moment because he was a show last night. It was amazing to watch him. He made one really great play, the catch over the wall, and a couple of other very good ones, in my opinion. And all the while was just having a blast. It was crazy to see from field level just the way he was conducting himself. And it was in a good way, not in a bad way.
And Ken, he's playing well. In addition to the defense, I mean, he's hitting, so he's contributing to the team. He's massively contributing to the entertainment of the sport. And for the first 15 minutes, Rosarena dominated the conversation on this show. And No Fun Police over here said, wait,
No.
let me talk.
Don't put me in the same with
I said, Rosarena, I think, is a different player in a situation like this. He's good in the regular season the last couple years, but maybe there's another gear because he's having so much fun and he feeds off the crowd. And I know it's not always going to feel like a playoff environment, but my thing is maybe one time during the game in a pitching change in the 5th inning, he can sign an autograph or two during a 3-minute commercial break where he's just hanging out doing nothing. I'm trying to come up with ideas that can make Randy be Randy on the field because he's doing that in the World Baseball Classic. AJ wants to bring WBC things over to MLB during the regular season.
I didn't say that for him not to. I said I'm all for it. I said when I was
if
playing.
If you were his teammate, what would you have done?
When I was playing, that was a long time ago. Now, dude, do whatever you want.
If you were currently on the Rays in 2023, you'd say it's okay.
Go for it.
Okay, that's fine. I didn't realize that.
You didn't ask me that.
I thought I did.
It was a different culture back then, Scott.
Ken, what do you think? Can Randy be himself a little bit more with the Rays this year and do something? I'm just giving an example because that's something he's doing in the World Baseball Classic. Doesn't seem to be affecting his performance.
No, it's not affecting his performance. I don't know that he'd feel the same energy in a regular season game that he's feeling right now. And it's funny, Taijuan Walker said to me the other night, if I was a team, I'd sign him, put him away for 6 months, and bring him out for the postseason because he is a bright lights guy. He shines in these kinds of environments. It's crazy. And Taijuan said something else really funny too. I said this on the broadcast last night. Randy in the clubhouse and around the players is quiet. But yet on the field, he's high energy. And Taijuan Walker said it makes no sense. You don't see this kind of dichotomy with players very often. But certainly he's got to be himself. And that's actually what we're talking about here. Every player getting to be himself. And by the way, that goes for Mike Trout. Now, Mike Trout, a few years ago, if you remember this, the commissioner called him out for not being more of a pure entertainer. It was a ridiculous criticism. This is a guy who is one of the finer individuals in the game from everything we can see from the outside. He is beloved by his teammates, respected by everyone in the game. He carries himself in a certain way, and it's not a look at me, show me kind of thing. He's not like that. So he's got to be himself too. And really, what I love about the sport is there's room for all kinds, and that's not just true of personalities. It's true when we talk about diversity. It's true even in body types. Jose Altuve versus Aaron Judge. That's the beauty of baseball in many ways, and it has to extend to personalities too.
Hey, Ken, let's finish with this. Something we wanted to cover last week, but didn't get to because we didn't have you on later in the week. Rio Gomez, son of the late, great Pedro Gomez, one of the best reporters of all time in baseball history, and his son Rio, who he was so proud of, pitched for Team Colombia at the WBC, You can see his mom in the stands, fam, just absolutely soaking in the moment, and wanted to get your thoughts, as I know you were close with Pedro.
Well, it was something else, and Pedro would have loved it. He would call me, and not just me, other reporters that we was friendly with as well, with updates on Rio when he was maybe in college or the low minors, and he'd send me video, photos. He was just so excited that his son had even gotten to where he had gotten. He was a walk-on in junior college, a walk-on in college at Arizona, and he was a guy who was cut from his high school team, low-round draft pick, and yet he accomplished so much. So it would have been so great for Pedro to have seen that, but his mother Sandy was there. He had a great outing, inning and a third scoreless, and I actually saw him that night. We went to dinner. His mother, me, and another friend of ours, and Rio. You guys will like this. He was like any player. He's like, they should have left me in. I was rolling. I could have gotten a couple more outs. And I'm like, dude, hey, maybe they took you out at the right time, because if that outing had ended with you allowing 2 hits, it wouldn't have felt the same. And you had an amazing outing, and now you can take this with you forever. So it was just a really heartwarming thing. And the only shame of it was that Pedro couldn't be there to see it, because he just would have loved it. That's all I can say.
Yeah, and I know Rio looked up at the press box on the way off the field too. So yeah, it was a perfect moment, and for anyone that knew Pedro, it really hit home for a lot of people. Knowing I'm same here. I knew him for many years too. Didn't have the same relationship, of course, but I've had conversations with him about Rio. So what that story meant to him, his son, and his rise to be in a moment like this really means a lot. So Ken, on that note, have an absolute time tonight at this game. It's going to be nuts. We'll talk to you afterward later this week.
I don't know, Scott. It's not going to be very fun for me. I don't like my job. I just want to do something else at this
Ken,
point.
good. I'm glad, because next in 3 years, when I'm the manager of Team Poland, you're our media director. So congratulations. You hate your job. Just wait till you're running the media for Team Poland.
AJ, the sarcasm font was on there in case you didn't see it. It's on.
I was going to say, be careful. AJ might clip that and say, hey, Ken doesn't like his job.
I would never do that to Ken.
No, I know.
He's my guy.
Ken, thank you. Have a great time tonight.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one, man.